Hello everyone, Justin Vacula here with another video in my Stoic Philosophy video series. This is video 8, Why Stoicism? You can find me online at justinvacula.com, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This video comes following 7 others where I have talked about dealing with the results of the recent presidential election and summarizing and offering my thoughts on chapters in Epictetus Discourses. This video can get back more to the roots, what drew me to Stoicism and how it benefits me. I got a question from a viewer which is as follows. Justin, I am a student at the George Washington University in DC, and I'm currently writing a final paper in my philosophy class about a renewed wave of Stoicism. I am reaching out to you because I've noticed your posting on Stoic social media outlets. Could you please provide any insight on why you have been drawn to Stoicism and how it plays a part of your everyday life? I appreciate your response. Thanks for the inquiry. Let's get to it. I have a background in psychology and philosophy for undergrad studies. I double majored, taking classes, first starting with psychology, but later taking up philosophy as I had taken core classes and became interested in philosophy, saw the parallels between the two subjects, and wanted to study more rigorously within psychology classes. I found parallels with cognitive behavioral therapy, rational emotive behavioral therapy, and now looking at much within Stoicism, I find a lot of overlap. Cognitive behavioral therapy, thinking about what happens to us, what happens in the external world as simply events, and that we can have our judgments about what happens rather than catastrophizing, rather than having flawed ideas about reality which cause us distress. In Stoicism, we see this. Stoics talk about impressions, our judgments that are formed about things in the world. Having right judgments, dealing with our impressions appropriately, dealing with the world appropriately, having an appropriate response to what happens around us is a lot of what Stoicism talks about. Should we fear death? Should we dread change? Should we take news as a terrible thing? Stoics seem to advocate for a position of taking things as they come, dealing with events, thinking about what's in our control, instead of despairing, instead of saying that, well, it's our fault, this is a bad thing, we're flawed in some way. This is themes in CBT, REBT, that has a lot in common with Stoicism. In fact, in listening to some content from Stoics, there was the wife of Albert Ellis, I believe, who gave a presentation at a recent Stoic event. You can see that for more information. I can link below. My first exposure to Stoicism, I think, was from the Rationally Speaking podcast with Massimo Pigliucci, who maintains an active blog on Stoicism. You can see links to that in the low bar, and the Thinking Poker podcast. Poker is something that I devote a good amount of time to. We see within poker that there is a lot of adversity. There are a lot of things that are outside of our control. There are ups and downs. We can simply only play the cards that we are dealt and play the hands the best we can. We see also at the tables a lot of complaining about things, people talking about how unlucky they are, about how terrible they run, that they're just not experiencing the results that they want in the game. A lot of mental blocks such as entitlement, such as being stuck money and playing desperately, making desperate plays rather than keeping a more content mindset that Stoicism seems to advocate for. This more content mindset, this more of just dealing with events as they happen, really applies to the poker table. As we see, mindset and philosophy can help improve one's life, despite some naysayers saying, oh, philosophy is useless, my mindset really doesn't matter, this is a waste of time. So sometimes we hear this, people scoff, people laugh, but having a good mindset about things helps us live a more content life. It helps us self-reflect. It helps us have good experiences rather than dwelling in despair, rather than dwelling on the things that have happened in the past that we can't change. We want to stay focused on the present and have a good mindset about things rather than despairing, rather than blaming others, and simply focusing on what we can control and making do with the events that happen in life. Dealing with adversity and difficult people is something that's brought up a lot in the Stoic writings, and talking about dealing with insults, about people who might be nasty, dealing with ungrateful people, dealing with people who are angry, people who ridicule you. Well, the appropriate response is to focus on your own actions and to have a realization that other people will be nasty. In fact, I think it is Epictetus who encourages us to meditate in the morning, that we're going to deal with unsavory people, and it's simply something that's going to happen. It's not our fault, but rather it's their ignorance, it's their lack of education, it's their flawed mindset that's causing them to be this way. So why should we be offended? He says to be like a stone, and how should a stone face ridicule? Well, when a stone faces ridicule, nothing happens. We could be like that. We can be stalwart. We can deal with difficulties, hardship, setbacks, and change. Being steadfast in our nature, dealing with things appropriately. And change is simply something that happens. It's brought up a lot in Stoic writings, that we're going to have different transitions in life. Death is inevitable. We're going to lose people and things that we care for, and not to get so attached to externals, but rather to be focused on our ruling faculty, our reason, our rationality, and to place value in things that are correct, to not place so much value in the externals and things like reputation, fame, wealth, and in some cases, even our relationships with others, as they can be fragile. But of course, this needs us not to say, well, we're just not going to care about anything outside of us, but rather we're going to choose carefully who we associate with. We're going to give experience priority, and that, well, we're in the now. This is something that is happening, that we can value, that we can treasure, for we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So maybe that's more zeal and zest for the moment and today, and living life and having fulfillment, and that death comes. Well, we can enjoy life and live a good life rather than wallowing in despair, as I mentioned earlier, or wanting more than we simply can't have, and thinking that things outside of our control can be in our control. These are some blocks, as I mentioned, that people can face. Finding purpose, direction, and meaning in life. The Stoics talk a lot about playing a role and applying virtue to everything, and deciding to be a strong person in whatever we do, and not simply spending all of our time in leisure, and actually getting out in the world and aspiring to greatness. There's a passage about people who have great skill, Olympians, wrestlers, I believe it was. Heracles even said, what good would Heracles have been if he just stayed at home? And it asks us, well, how can we be involved? What kind of purpose, what kind of impact can we have on the world to make things better, to deal with other people, even to entertain other people? It talks a lot about musicians can apply virtue in what they do, performers, actors. So no matter where we happen to be in life, we can apply virtue, apply skill, and be good at what we do and find purpose in this. Stoicism encourages us to question our desires and live humbly, rather than focusing much on material possessions, focusing on what our neighbors do, what other people around us do. Maybe in today's life, people focus so much on wealth, on maybe celebrity culture, on so much that really doesn't seem to matter. Of course, this is going to be a subjective thing about what matters, what entertains us. People find leisure in other things. People really enjoy sports. They enjoy watching football, but that's not simply something for me. But perhaps they can have balance if they find purpose in this entertainment. Well, so be it, as long as you're not harming others, of course. So we're to question our desires, what we want in life, what kind of balance we're to have. Stoicism also advocates for moderation and not focusing too much on one area, in not tying the entire ship to one anchor, as I think was in the text. To have a backup plan, to not put all the eggs in one basket, and to not overwork ourselves or exhaust ourselves by doing too much, and finding time for leisure and finding time for entertainment. Stoicism also advocates for self-reflection. Say, is what I am doing worth it? Is what I am doing the right thing? To question ourselves Epictetus deals with a lot of challenges to Stoic philosophy in his writing, and having what's called these imaginary conversations with people who say, well, what if? What if? He's constantly asking questions. He's not discouraging people from questioning his ideas. And he's advocating that people are humble, that they take advice from others who matter, some good challenges to our ideas, rather than simply saying we have all the answers, we know what it is we're to do. All right, well, there are some items. Hopefully that was a good response to the question. You can like, share, and subscribe for more content here on YouTube and online. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and donate if you'd like to support my work. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for more.